still live from Times Square, but I'm no longer outside. We did good. I mean, we went a good stretch of 45 or so plus minutes uh, um, reporting, live. And so now I'm actually in this Times Square museum across the street, and so, somebody's playing the guitar. But our the next guest that we have with us, who has been with us before, is Mr. Bill Still, who, for me, explains the monetary system. Like again, like Les Jamison was talking about earlier about 9/11 truth. It's all about the math. The physics doesn't lie. And so, here we have another person, Mr. Bill Still, who is, that's what it's all about. It's all about the facts. It's all about just looking at the reality of where things come from, and where money comes from, and how it's made, and how it basically is not backed by anything, and it's not even paper anymore. A lot of it is just digital. And so Mr. Bill Still is the creator of the first documentary that I saw, which was The Money Masters. I think that was your first documentary that came out in 1996 or
Right.
95. Okay,
Right.
96. And then The Secret of Oz, which I thought was truly, I loved. I mean, because I had no idea that that was the real story behind The Wizard of Oz, that the writer, Baum, what's it,
L. Frank Baum.
Frank Baum, was trying to send a message about the silver and gold standard at the time by writing this story. I thought that was pretty, really interesting. And so your latest one, Jekyll Island, that I did my best to kind of help uh, with that, because I really like your work, and I think you just explain things in a simple language, unlike the head spinning derivative, what are they called, default swaps and all that stuff
Right. Right.
that the Wall Street tries to, when they make it complicated, they can get over on people. When you make it simple, that to me is the biggest light shedder, is just simplicity. And so, right, you can't get over on math. So it's best to turn to the math for the answers. And so your latest still report was about Hungary. And Hungary, through they got rid of the IMF. Do you want
Right.
to talk about that?
Oh yeah. Well, good evening, everybody. Yeah, I just put up a new report on Hungary, and there was Hungary's been going through quite a process. They're a relatively new democracy. In fact, I think they didn't get the Russians out of Hungary until 1990, and so they elected a new prime minister. Um, when was it? 2 years ago, Viktor Orban, and he's immediately taken a very
Can
defiant
you say
stand.
say his name one more time? It kind of broke up just a bit.
Viktor Orban. Viktor Orban.
Okay,
Orban. I'm not sure exactly of the
right.
pronunciation, but in any case, he's taken a very anti-EU stand. Hungary is a part of the EU, and they were supposed to become a part of the euro and give up their national sovereign currency. But the new prime minister has decided not to do that. And so then he decided he was going to go ahead and pay off the International Monetary Fund loans, which were taken out at the depth of the the crash in 2008 by the previous socialist government, he decided he was going to pay those off, and the way he was able to pay those off, I believe, and I don't know this for a fact, but it's just speculation. Looking at some of their investments, they've done very well with this run up in the stock markets internationally, and so I think they just decided to sell what they had, or sell a significant portion of it, and pay off the last, I believe, was $2.2 billion loan to the IMF a year early. And then they told the IMF to pack their bags and get out of the country, because they know that the way these folks get their chokehold around nation states is to get them borrowing. That's the trick. That's the secret.
Jesus.
And
Right,
so,
keep them dependent.
right.
It's really
And
sinister.
so he decided he was going to put an end to that, and so he paid off the IMF loan and told him to get lost. Well, the very day that he made the final payment, the European Union told him that they were cutting reconstruction or infrastructure funding to Hungary by between $2 and $3 billion. And this is something that had been budgeted and counted on for years. And this is a significant chunk for a small country like Hungary, whose total budget deficit is only $2 billion. So, in any case, but I mean, I assume that Prime Minister Orban expected that this was a possibility and has made plans for it. So
it was like a retaliation.
No, it was definitely a retaliation.
For right. It's like, how dare you want to be free of us?
Right. Well, but see, the EU doesn't have all the cards here, although they usually do, but they don't in this case, and that's because of another development that happened in June, and that was, well, actually, we have to go back to April in Iceland. Iceland elected a new parliament, the most radically pro-monetary reform, radically anti-European Union parliament that there's ever been. And it completely turned the parliament in Iceland around from being membership in the European Union was, for sure going to happen, a fait accompli, to no way, we don't want you, we are not joining the European Union. And so that was a blow. Even though Iceland is a little nation, as we all know, Iceland has had a reputation for doing things very creatively and solving these economic problems.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Bill?
I can hear you perfectly.
Shoo.
Hello. Hello, hello.
Bill,
hello.
Yeah, like...
I can hear both of you.
Will you hear... Hello?
I can hear everybody
yeah,
fine.
I mean... Yeah, you kind of keep... like, you're talking and then all of a sudden, like, I don't hear you anymore. For just like a few seconds, maybe like 4-5 seconds.
Huh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
In any case, so Iceland rejected the European Union in June. And so the European Union can only now push these countries that are right on the edge to a certain extent, because they really can't afford, from a public relations standpoint, to have another nation reject them. So really, I think Hungary is holding a lot more cards playing this hand of poker than it may realize, and I would just encourage it to try to stay the course and continue to break free. There's even talks of Hungary completely getting out of the European Union, which would just be a crushing blow and a wonderful roadmap for Greece to get out of its problems.
Isn't the whole point, though, for countries to to be independent and to have their own currencies, and to like I don't see what the attraction is for all these countries to be a part of the European Union. What is the attraction? Like, what is the advantage? I don't see that.
Well, the advantage is that Germany, which is at the core of the European Union, can can print up funny money and give it to these different, much smaller economy nations in the form of loans. And this is very attractive to these countries who lots of them are still trying to get out of the clutches of Soviet communism, and they have they need a lot of infrastructure development and modernization, and that's even before you start talking about the corrupt politicians factor. So it's very tantalizing and very difficult for a nation to say no to this, and so that's what the problem is.
But it doesn't end up being advantageous to them anyway.
Well, no, it's just coming to light now, though, that this
Right.
European Union thing doesn't actually work. That basing your entire national economy on national debt and borrowing does not work. It's just a short-term fix that lines the pockets of the politicians that are in power right now, but long-term, it destroys your country. And that's what the and
what's that Latin term? Caveat emptor.
well, who
That's
was
a
it? Lord Acton, the British in I believe the mid 1600s said absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely, and that's
yeah.
what happens when you go across national boundaries and start forming transnational organizations. The people lose touch with the politics of the country, and once they feel they're no longer in control with the politics, then you're on a railway to Hitler-like hell as far as over consolidation of power. That's why the founding fathers, when they created the U.S. Constitution, created the separation of powers concept, where they kept power spread out so that power would not tend to consolidate. And so when you start consolidating transnationally, nothing but bad things ultimately can happen. I mean, it's right out of the old novel 1984, and
Right.
nothing can happen but that. And so, nations are tempted by the lending right at first. They've always been tempted by lending. That's been the old Rothschild trick. However, it just doesn't work out in the long run. And nations are starting to wake up to this, and just in the nick of time, because the European Union depends on continuing to pull new nations in to be able to survive, to keep this Ponzi scheme alive. And now nations are
What
starting to rebel. So this is really the front
what
line
I
of
what,
this battle.
yeah, what I can't figure out though, is I mean, how do people think that it's going to be advantageous to them to take out to have a loan when what they have to pay back? Right. I mean, if somebody really wants to help you, they're going to help you by being, giving, not by, I mean, like they're obviously kind of helping themselves if they're lending you something, but then you have to pay them back more than what they loaned you.
Well, a similar situation is going on in Latvia right now. Latvia has the strongest currency in Europe, the Latvian lat. In fact, it's the fourth strongest currency in the world. And yet, their politicians have voted to abandon the lat on January 1st, 2014, this coming January, and adopt the
Oh,
euro. And
oh my
they they
gosh.
they do it because the European Union has promised all these loans, and in Latvia it's nothing but outright greed and bribery and all that. And all opinion polls show that by far a majority of the people do not want to go to the euro. They want to stay with their national sovereign currency, the lat. And to the point where even some politicians on the floor of Parliament raised sufficient signatures to bring this to a referendum, and yet the government denied on God only knows what grounds, but they denied the people of Latvia the chance to even vote on this in referendum. So it's a bunch of crooked dealing going on, and the European Union is shoveling money there to try to get poor little Latvia sucked in.
So that's what I'm saying. So they basically do it, they go against, the people saying, no, 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 but yet the people are the ones that get screwed. I mean, they're
Well,
the one, they're
right.
the ones that end up. So, like, why can't the people then turn around and say, "Screw you"? Like, I'm not paying these taxes. I'm not, you went ahead and did it without me. I didn't want it. So, I'm not paying these debts.
Well, actually, that's an acknowledged international principle called odious debt. That if a previous government in your country has taken loans or made some type of financial arrangement with someone outside of the nation that you thought bribery was involved, or was crooked in some way, or it did not benefit the public interest of the citizens of your nation, you can just declare it to be odious debt, and according to international law, you don't have to repay odious debt. You just write it off. It's done.
So yeah,
And so,
why don't all these countries do that? Because I think it's happened in so many like third world countries. I think like Venezuela and Argentina. From my listening to a lot of the things that John Perkins used to talk about. Right, like the rich companies would come in, they would make like everyone is going to benefit, and they would set up camp, and of course only a few rich people would benefit, and then they would leave the rest of the country holding the debt. So I mean, are they not aware that they're allowed to not pay the debt?
well, no, of course not. I mean, that's one of the keys to this whole thing. You have to control the three major pathways of truth in a nation state. That's the politicians. You have to control the media to some extent, and you have to control
Yeah.
the academic community as well. And so they're quite capable of doing that. We all know that the media, especially the big media in the United States, is completely controlled, and just you're never going to see certain stories. And when you get to these smaller nations, it's a much, much worse case. The people just don't know. They're not fed proper information, and so they don't know that they can elect politicians that will declare their national debt as odious and just write it off, get it off the books, so they no longer have to pay taxes, income taxes for it. They just don't know. So
Right.
it's a matter of education. But with the
Yeah.
internet, and that's why I'm so interested in doing stories in all these different European countries, because it empowers them when they see one of my little still reports up there that talks about their country. I mean, like my little thing on Latvia, the first week or 10 days, almost nothing happened. Nobody hit it. And then about after 3 weeks, all of a sudden, 16,000 Latvians hit it like that. It
It's
just made it just made the rounds. And so now they're all the comments, they're all very hot, and they're explaining, their side of the story, that, the politicians make 100 times what the average Latvian does. And
it
so they all know it's crooked.
it's like O2 saturation.
Well, I
that's
don't know
that's
about that. That's your department.
that's what you're giving these people that are not aware of that. I mean, right? It's like a breath of fresh air. I mean, but that's the difference between you and the EU, or whatever bank, and the IMF. I mean, you're not saying to the Latvians, okay, like I'll give you this information, but what, it's going to cost you whatever, like 5,000 lots or something. I mean, you're basically giving it to them. You're giving it to them for free. That's my point. I mean, someone obviously who really and sincerely want, like it's just like is amazing, because this is exactly what I've always said. I mean, someone who's sincere and wants to help. I mean, because even jobs. I mean, I think about jobs. Okay, like what, healthcare. I mean, people that go to therapy or whatever, anything in sort of like the medical field, and then they get bogged down with all kinds of medical bills that end up. I mean, that's what our medical system has turned into. The healthcare system has turned into. It's like, you're sick, for God's sake. When you're sick, like you're sick. I mean, you don't have it. You need help. You need someone to, like, give to you. And the whole healthcare system has turned into for profit, and it makes people sicker rather than healthier.
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Like healthcare, right? People pay into healthcare. I mean, they pay their taxes. I mean, this stuff should be there when you need it. I mean, something's got to be free. That I mean, if everything is for profit and no one like that's the whole point, is that we live in a system where there is nothing that's free. I mean, that's ridiculous. You can't have everything be about money. You can't have like you know parents exchanging money with their kids and kids like paying their parents to be their parents, or you don't pay your wife to be your wife. I mean, where does it end? There's got to be some things have to be free. Some things, you know, right? Like, or else you don't have that O2 saturation. I mean,
Well, and I don't charge anything for my still reports, but I started putting up a little notice on each one that says, if you'd like to help,
right,
just subscribe for a
right.
dollar a month. A dollar a month is all I ask. Nobody will miss that from, and you'd be surprised how few people do it. But it's starting to pick up. People are starting to say, yeah, I'll give a dollar a month for this to keep this on the air, and so it might work out in the long run.
So that's what I'm saying. That's how like a wolf in sheep's clothing is through finances. I mean, it's and again, like maybe people are just so they're so used to everything being about money. They're so used to nobody just being giving, that when these banks or the EU or whatever come along with their fancy talk, or their ideas or their deals, people get sucked in, I guess, because they just no, I guess because because nobody like you comes along to offer them anything for donation and for like you're obviously in it for the cause and
No,
not for
yeah, I've seen this coming for a long time. This is this this oncoming world dictatorship is what they're trying to bring about, and the EU is just their test run to see how they can make it work. And if they can make the EU work, they'll expand it in one way or another. They might call it something different. They might have some type of variation to fake people out that it's something different, but it'll be the exact same thing. It's just across transnational borders, and it's just disastrous. And in Great Britain, that's why you see the UKIP party gaining in such popularity. It's because their leader, Nigel Farage, is just so against the European Union. He's the European Union representative to a portion of Great Britain, and just the most outspoken critic of the European Union
oh good
that could ever be. And that's why his party, the UKIP, is making gigantic gains, because the British people understand it. It's just now circulating in Britain that 85% of legislation that affects the lives of British citizens is not made in the British Parliament anymore. It's made in Brussels and the European Parliament, over which the British people don't feel they have any control whatsoever. The
right
bigger the group, the less control, by definition, the citizens have over it. And there's some critical point that's yet to be defined, that when you get over that point, then the people just lose all hope of controlling the government. And without self-governance, this entire thousand-year quest of humankind to bring about freedom through self-governance, self-determination, is lost. Once people become so hateful towards
yeah
their government, so disconnected that feel they have absolutely no ability to keep it functioning honestly, then we're sunk. And so that's what the problem. I've seen this coming for a long time, and I'm willing to devote the remaining years of my life, to whatever extent I financially can do it, in being opposed to this.
So, you've been getting pretty good recognition recently. You just came back from Ireland, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Israel, Ireland, and
Right.
Iceland, the three I's. And I got invited to Italy. But they couldn't put up the money for the plane fare, so I didn't get to go. But I've been invited to interview their new rising political star. Um,
Well, yeah. What did they want? What did they wanted you to come to Italy to help them too, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. I'll do a still report on Italy at some point whenever there's something to make it newsworthy. But
I
I'm
guess.
already ready to go on that.
Okay, so talk about Greece because I think your next project is going to be focusing on Greece.
Yeah, I'm trying to raise money right now to make this happen. I've got an Indiegogo up. All you have to do is go to Indiegogo, INDIEGOGO, and then type in the search box "fixing Greece," or probably just if you typed in Greece, it would come up. And so I have a crowdfunding deal going there, which runs the next, I don't know, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. And so we're trying to raise money there. But Greece is in the worst shape of any of the nations in Europe, and
So right,
they're
so I mean
they're
that's another question. Sorry, like really quickly, when countries see the countries that are involved with the euro and what's happening to them. I mean, like, isn't that kind of like, well, gee, maybe we better not get involved with the euro?
yeah, but how do these countries see that? How do the people of Latvia see an honest look at the results of what's happening to the people in Greece and why it's happened? Where do they get that news? They aren't
Uh,
going to get it from their local television set.
that's right.
They
It's
aren't
that.
going to get it from their local magazines because their magazines and their televisions are primarily supported by advertising, and the biggest advertiser, I ran a newspaper, I know, are banks.
Oh
So
gosh.
certainly the banks are not going to give them money for essentially anti-bank news.
Well, don't they go
So,
online and right and watch your documentaries or listen to like Al Jazeera or something?
well, yeah, but if I'm the only one talking about it, or just about the only one talking about it, who are they going to believe? Their media authorities, their politicians, and even their academic community won't speak up against this. Are they going to believe me, some little guy in the United States, or are they going to believe all their local establishment people who don't have a word to say about this? It's very difficult.
So, can you perhaps just take a few minutes to get to the like the bottom of it? I mean, so if you could put it as simply as possible, how. Right. I mean, is it that they just kind of print money out of thin air, or
No, no, no,
it's
no, 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 no,
right?
no.
It's not the Fed.
No, there's just two things. And the very first thing, the worst thing that you have to fix is national debt. Nations should not be allowed to borrow from anybody, anytime, no matter for what purpose. Your nation should not be allowed to borrow because the borrower becomes servant to the
Right.
lender. That's in the Bible. And so therefore, if your nation is not sovereign, sovereign means the highest power. If your nation borrows from somebody, that puts the lender to that nation above them. And who has enough money in this world to lend money to nations? Only the biggest bankers in this
Right.
world.
It's
And so therefore the entire nation becomes indebted and therefore under servitude to these big bankers. And the big bankers, of course, don't want this messy situation where individual nation states can get all mad at them and go off and throw their IMF out of the country and quit taking loans from them. They hate that. They want this nice big one world conglomeration of power where they can control absolutely everything and everybody that counts.
it's
That's what
like
they want.
yeah, it's like they're throwing this huge fishing net over the whole world, or trying to anyway, and
Right.
and yeah, and
This is
reel it
not
in.
this is a real battle. It's an ongoing battle, and the outcome of this battle cannot be determined at this point. It could go either way. And so I'm doing what I can to make people aware of what the deal is. Okay, well, the second thing with nation states that they have to quit doing is they have to quit allowing their banks to create money out of nothing. That has nothing to do
Right.
with, it doesn't matter whether the money is backed by something or not. That doesn't matter. You just declare one thing, one piece of paper, one stick of wood, one certain kind of rock, whatever you want to be money, and you stick with it, and you control its quantity. If you control the quantity, it's not what backs the money, it's who controls the quantity.
But wouldn't
So
it also, if it was backed by something, I mean, wouldn't that help it to control the quantity?
absolutely not, because see, just like with the nation state and the banker, if you're saying that money is backed by something, then
Right.
money is not the sovereign. Money is under this backed by something thing. And then you have to wonder, well, who owns that something thing? So therefore, they're the owners of the money. They're the controllers of the money. So you can't do it that way. You can't have your money backed by anything other than the good faith and credit of the nation, and you control the quantity by the most democratic process you can make up. There's no one way to do it correctly. Every nation could invent their own way, just so that the people are as close as possible to the decision. So to be sure that the decision is made always, always, always in the public interest. So those are the two things. Right now, banks create virtually all the money in every nation. In the United States, it's 97% of the money is credit money, credit cards, lending. When you go to your bank for a mortgage, you go in and get your mortgage. They don't go in the back room and pull out a giant suitcase of $100 bills and give it to you. That's what they make you think that they're doing. But no, they just credit your account with just a computer keystrokes. That money isn't backed by anything. They have the right, the unbelievable right. They just make that money up out of nothing, thin
Right.
air.
And so, in
That's
reality, like, what gives money value then? I'm
Well, because the government declares it to be good for the payment of taxes. That's what gives money value. But then what our government did in 1913 was they gave this banking consortium, it's nothing but a banking corporation, the Federal Reserve, complete power to control the quantity of that money. That was a horrible mistake. That quantity of money should be controlled either by the Treasurer of the United States for the benefit of we the people, not for the benefit of the banks, or by some other public body other than Congress. You don't want the guys who spend it to be in control of the quantity, or they'll just make up, all they want, and cause hyperinflation. But we've given it to a private corporation. That's all the Fed is. Who are the corporate stockholders? Just the banks in this country. So you've given essentially the fox charge over the chicken house, and you're expecting the chickens to be able to thrive, and that's just not going to happen. It's not ever going to happen. They're by definition, as a corporation, they have to act in the best interest of their shareholders, not in the best interest of we the people, because we don't own any shares of the Federal Reserve.
right. I'm actually trying to look up, like, recently I heard a story about, I mean, I don't know how related this is, but Timothy Geithner, um, this is why I hesitated to even bring it up. Oh, yeah. And Larry Summers, um, hold on a sec. Let me see if I just, Wall Street ties of Summers and Geithner. We should not oppose offshoring or outsourcing. Yeah, it was some kind of, sorry. Anyway, I don't want to.
It's not really going to be constructive to talk about these guys or what they've done. They're all a bunch of crooks. They're all in it together. They all should go to jail.
Yeah, Larry Summers is being vetted as a possible chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, he's got two alternative roads he could go down: become chairman of the Fed or spend the rest of his life in federal prison. And of course, I would much rather have him spend the rest of his life in prison. You certainly don't want a guy like that in charge of the quantity of money.
So yeah, I mean, it's pretty outrageous if that happens. I mean, right, how do these people not get brought to justice? It's like they have like a permanent not even get out of jail free. They don't need a get out of jail free card because they never end up in jail.
Well, it's just like that professor at Columbia, Jeffrey Sachs, said. When
Yeah.
was it? Back in April, that right now Wall Street is completely out of control of the rule of law. They've got so much money, they've spent so much money buying off politicians that they are absolutely fearless in doing anything they want. Now, Obama is trying to put up some show trials of going after some of the smaller fish in these banking hierarchies. As somebody said, they only go after the vice presidents of being thrown in prison. So they hire guys, who they're going to be the fall guys if anything goes wrong. And that's exactly what's going on. And they're never going to go to the big fish. It's just not going to happen. And it's not going to happen for one reason. And that's this basic reason that we have a national debt. We don't need a national debt. We don't need to pay down the national debt. We just need to get rid of it.
Right.
Nations should not borrow. There's an easy way to transfer into this system that doesn't cause an upset in the market and put the American money supply back in the hands of the American people instead of in the hands of these nothing less than big-time bankster crooks.
Rick, so I mean, the theme is that it's all a matter of getting the information to the people, and that seems to be that's the whole challenge is right, because the people who care, the people who want to get the truth to the people and tell them their rights, and another thing, because I was just across the street with a handful. I mean, I got an email about. I mean, I don't know how into the whole 9/11 thing that you are, but I believe it's definitely valid, this architects and engineers, to just question it and open up the case just based on the math. But the amount of people that are really like not interested. I mean, I thought it was pretty epic that a billboard is being put in the most, overwhelmingly distracting place on earth. And really only just over a handful of people, most of who I know, Luke Wadowski of We Are Change, my friend Danny Panzella, he's of Truth Squad TV, and the guy Les Jamison, and a couple of other people. So, okay, two handfuls of people. And most people have no idea about Building 7, and they're really and then when you try to tell people, though, it's not just a matter of getting the information to the people, it's getting people to absorb the information, because right, I mean, people in Latvia are going to want the information because they're suffering, they're like dehydrated. It's like, of course a dehydrated person wants water. But when you try to give a lot of information to some people walking around the streets over here, they're completely not interested. I mean, so like, what's the answer to that dilemma? How do you get? I mean, people that just don't even know, they don't even care maybe that they're being screwed, or they don't think there's anything that they can do.
Well, there you go. So you've said it. That's the core of the problem is, why should I spend my time on something when my time is not going to make a difference? That's what they try to promote. That's why you see constantly in all the big media the latest polling showing record low numbers of approval for the Congress of the United States. They love to trumpet that number. That's just not an accident that you see that. spouted at least once a week on television stations.
What was the numbers? Sorry, say that again.
I think that the approval rating of Congress, I think it's down to around 13% or something like that. And I hear this number at least once a week. They love to talk about that. And nothing could be more damaging than it just goes to show how everybody's always slamming the government at this point. Without the government is the only way that we can maintain our freedom. We have to take the doggone government back, though. Right now, it's in the hands of this criminal entity. Exactly. And the reason it's in the hands of this criminal entity is because our government is borrowing from the criminal entity.
And why are they doing that? I mean, how did they get sucked into that? I mean, so they took the, what is it, the red pill? I'm sorry, I forget which is the wake up pill.
I think it was the blue pill was the wake up pill. Yeah.
I forget which one it was, but so how does government take the wrong pill? I mean, that makes no sense to me at all.
It's just old-fashioned bribery. You get in there and you get into these powerful, power is consolidated in the committee head system, and you get a sufficient number of guys who say, yeah, I'll take that free jet plane ride anytime I call a certain number. Yeah, I'll take that house in the Bahamas. Yeah, and so then a new guy coming in who has all this idealism, all the old committee chairs will say, look, there's no sense in fighting the system. You're just going to lose out, and, the system will swallow you and spit you back out into your home district. So, you have a choice. You can go along with it and take the money like we do, or you can go back home because eventually you're going to lose. And so most people, that's convincing. And you just got to cut this link between the big banks and the political system, or nothing good will ever come out of the U.S. Congress again.
I mean, because, to me, it seems like so many people that they've gone through sort of various stages of, when you feel like you have no control, and I mean, because, people are basically bleeding to death. They're working like dogs. Their money has less value. You have to work so much harder for less, and so they really are kind of in a state of various stages of shock from just bleeding out, and that weakens people, and then they have less energy to do anything about it. But the thing is, if they just unplug themselves from the monstrosity that is bleeding them dry, then the color would come back in their cheeks. They wouldn't be blue anymore from cyanosis.
I love the way you relate everything to health. That's so good, because everybody can relate to that. Yeah.
Well, that's why I mean, I am not a political person. I'll say it like over and over again that I'm a health person, because, everything, like health cannot be bought. Health cannot be bribed. Math cannot be bought. So, just like the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, you always come back to the math. You always come back to, nature. I mean, all those birds drowning in the oil down there at the spill. I mean, you can't pay them to keep their, feathers clean or something like that. And so that's where the truth is. You have to stick with where the truth is in the things that can't be bought. And that's why I always stick to health.
Because it works.
Yeah.
It works. But, you asked me to explain this simply, and so I just want to circle back around and reiterate exactly what the problem is now that we've talked it over a little bit. And that's, number one, nations should not borrow. You should never, ever hear the term national debt. That's why my last book that I wrote was called No More National Debt, because that's what I've seen this kind of like in a vision a couple years ago, that this is where we have to focus. We have to focus, number one, on getting our nation off this whole national debt concept that, it's something we can't do without. We have to borrow from bankers. Nonsense!
Okay,
we have the sovereign right over money.
You are making another really good point that I have been, on a different level, of course, but trying to, bring focus and attention to. It's like, right, like we live in a society that tries to normalize sickness, and being sort of dysfunctional and sick is normal, and so national debt is normal. Like walking around like, I don't know, with freaking ugly warts all over your body or something is normal, or not being able to use your arms and legs is normal. I mean, to me, that is so significant, and that's what keeps people. I mean, again, like keeping people to, like, it's normalized for people to have this feeling of, oh, there's nothing that you can do. Oh, you're right, we're never going to win. Oh, you can't fight City Hall. Like all of like these things that are clear signs and symptoms of illness, dysfunction, and disease, that people have just come to accept as a normal part of life. And I, right. So making it clear that a national debt is a disease and a sickness, and it's not normal to walk around having and fighting cancer all the time, you know is so significant.
Yeah, I'm just looking up on the news, and looks like, to change the subject a little bit, Assad is preparing for a U.S. strike on Syria by moving troops and hiding weapons. And of course, that's just exactly what the Obama administration wants, because our spy satellites and intelligence community can then see, what they're trying to protect and where they're going to hide it and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, that was
uh,
another. Yeah, I mean, if
yeah,
maybe just for our last couple of minutes, we can talk about Syria, because I they had two protests actually right over here, same location, Times Square, pretty big protest against the war on Syria, and and some people were like pro Assad and pro intervention, and some people were like not pro intervention. And there was actually this young military guy, of course, who was, I think he was kind of naive, and just wanting to believe that, his government and military were over there for the right reasons, for these humanitarian reasons, which
well,
I,
that may be true. I wouldn't cast that motive aside. But the point is that we can't take care of all the good humanitarian things in the world. Uh,
right, we can't
we don't
even
have the money
afford
to
it.
do it, but we don't have the money to do it. But especially in a case like this, to the rest of the Arab world, it just sends a signal that, oh, we're trying to be the dominators of the entire world scene and all this sort of thing. So we should absolutely not do anything here. I mean, the Kuwaitis have tons of F-16 fighters that can carry missiles. I'm sure we could set 100 cruise missiles down in any one of those countries in the Middle East, and specifically an Arab country. You want the Arabs to go after this. The Arab League has kind of sort of endorsed a strike at this point. So they should go ahead and take care of it. This is their backyard. Do they want this guy throwing around poison gas or not? I mean, do something about it. Don't leave it to us to be the big bully in their backyard to do it.
Right. And I mean, me personally, I just think that this country kind of sees and uses the conflicts going on in these countries just to be opportunists, and pretend they're over there for humanitarian reasons, when all they're really doing is just carrying out some hidden agenda, and camouflaging it under like humanitarianism.
Well, I don't take that cynical a view of the American military, but as you know, I grew up. My dad was in the military, so I grew up in it. I've worked with military guys, throughout my entire career, and I don't take that kind of a cynical view. I mean, they sincerely believe they're, uh, you know, protecting the world for freedom and all this. And, other people go moan and groan and say, oh, America's an imperialist nation. But I heard when we went in, remember when we went into Iraq that, we're just going in there to take the Iraqi oil. We haven't taken a drop of the Iraqi oil. They're selling it on the open market, and that's what their national income depends on. So,
they're obviously making quite a mess. I mean, it's kind of like this botched surgery. And I mean, you have to admit when you're not really helping, you have to kind of admit that and then, stop. I mean,
exactly. And so this is where we should cut it off right here, make a clean break and say we're changing U.S. policy. I mean, the left wing of the United States elected Obama to do this specifically. This was the main thing they elected him to take care of, and he's got to do it. He's got to just break the chain.
Right. Because, again, like, what's the reason for being in Afghanistan? This war in the Middle East that's been going on for 12 years now. And I guess one point I'll just make real quick that I brought up with Les Jamison is the whole reason why I feel like that 9/11 is a really good thing to talk about is because everything is built on top of that. Like, that's the foundation for all of this. So, if you can clear up 9/11, then it brings down all of these wars, all of the, even all the stop and frisk and all the, checking of people in the subway by the police over here in New York. You can't get on a subway without listening to, this is an announcement of the New York City Police Department. Your bags are subject to be searched. And being felt up at airports. I mean, everything comes down to, what happened on 9/11. Like, they use terrorism as an excuse, to carry out the New World Order.
Absolutely. But I just don't think that going at it from that direction, even if you're absolutely 100% correct, is going to be effective ultimately. You've got to cut this viper off at the root, and the root is the connection between the U.S. Congress and the big banks in this country. That's the connection you've got to pull the plug on.
And we have to, the people have to stop making, I'm just going to call them the powers that be, gods. I mean, they're human, they're fallible, they make mistakes, and it's this constant covering up of their mistakes and them never admitting or owning to any kind of error or just human fallibility. So it's almost like they have become like these gods that can do no wrong or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, you're in New York. What's with this Anthony Weiner thing? How come he can even have the gall to show his face on television at this point? Has it really gone that far?
Yeah, it's crazy. But it looks like we're gonna like wrap it up. It's amazing. My laptop battery actually lasted. I've been on using it for 2 straight hours now. But so any last words? Or go ahead and plug your Indiegogo thing again.
Yeah. Indiegogo, it's I can even give the URL. It's igg.me/at/fixgrease. So you can just go onto the Indiegogo site and type in Fix Grease, and it'll come right up. And
that sounded like a default swap. Just give them the easy one.
We'd appreciate your support. It's just not going to get done any other way.
Okay, thanks so much, and of course we'll have you back in the future. And there he goes. We just have a few minutes left. Thank you for tuning in. I think I'm probably just gonna maybe wrap it up like a few minutes early here, and I will see you or hear you, or you'll hear me next Tuesday. Organic news here on awakeradio.co.uk, and check out Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and Bill Still. Check out my YouTube channel, April like the month, Watters, Watters, or send me a friend request on Facebook, Cat, CAT, Watters, Watters. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cat Waters and Bill Still, for bringing us that show. We did it. We stayed connected. I cannot believe it. Where there's a will, there's a way. She's always off all over the country. Must be